I sat quietly at Emerald Bistro, a cozy little restaurant in Capitol Hill, savoring my coffee. My brother Ryan couldn't resist stealing the spotlight. He started talking about his job at his booming advertising agency, or rather, the job he used to have. Then he turned to me, flashing a mocking smile. Crazy, huh? Logan still hasn't landed a real job. Then, as if he couldn't help himself, Ryan glanced at me. The smile on his face shifted, not exactly malicious, but enough to put me on edge. Mom immediately cut in, her voice stern. Ryan, stop it. You know better than to say that. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Ryan shrugged lightly, then instantly switched to another story, about himself. He was always like that, overly confident, loud, and endlessly bragging. Every story of his was a legend of unverified triumphs, challenges only he could overcome. The way he talked about everything made it seem like the world revolved around him. I sat there, silent, with nothing to say. As always, I never felt the need to speak up in situations like this. My dad tried to shift to another topic, hoping to lighten the mood at the table, but Ryan's smug smile lingered in the air like a shadow that wouldn't fade. It never went away. No matter how much anyone tried to ignore it, Ryan went on boasting about his job hunting journey. He smugly rambled about how he'd soon land a stable job everyone envied, with a great salary and plenty of opportunities for advancement. No one in the room seemed to doubt or question his words. They all listened and nodded, exchanging looks as if accepting it as obvious truth. I just sat there, staring at the table, trying not to focus on what he was saying. In my mind, everything revolved around last night, the critical code release my team had just completed. Those lines of code weren't just the result of one sleepless night, but months of relentless work, meticulous care in every detail. And I knew that if Ryan really understood what my dead-end job was like, if he saw the pressure and stress we endured to keep everything on track, he might not mock or brag about his stable job anymore. He'd have to stay quiet, like I did, when faced with a reality not everyone could grasp. Under the table, Mom's hand found mine, giving it a gentle squeeze. I looked at her, smiling to reassure her, but inside, I was somewhere else. No one at this table, except a few close friends, knew that I was the co-founder of Skypulse Technologies, a tech company powering AI Nexa for major corporations. Just last night, I was in our South Lake Union office, typing the final lines of code for a critical update, bringing Nexa to millions of users from hospitals, diagnosing faster to banks transacting securely. But I chose anonymity. The spotlight, the applause, were never what I wanted. Ryan kept talking, his voice like an unending song. Next week's client is even bigger. I'll be up for a promotion soon, just watch, Mom. He winked at her, making her laugh. I looked out the window where raindrops slid down the glass, Seattle's neon lights flickering through the fog. This city, with its wet streets and vibrant tech culture, was where I found myself. But even here, I was still the useless little brother in Ryan's eyes. Childhood memories flooded back, vivid as if they'd just happened. Ryan was always the center of every room. At school, he led the basketball team, stood on stage giving speeches that earned standing ovations. I liked sitting in the corner with Dad's old computer, coding simple games. Ryan called it dumb stuff, and I learned to stay quiet. Not out of jealousy, I admired his confidence. But I soon realized I didn't need the spotlight. I liked building in the shadows, where my code could change the world without anyone knowing my name. I wasn't always this quiet. As a kid, I used to talk about my ideas, the games I wanted to create, the robots I wanted to build. But Ryan's voice was always louder, drowning everything out. Mom cheered him on stage. Dad praised me when I fixed his computer. Gradually, I accepted my role, the one behind the scenes. Ryan was the star with his dazzling smile and public victories. I sat in the audience, quiet with my ideas, not out of envy, just acceptance. I liked building. He liked shining. Now at 31, I see how that difference shaped me. I learned to listen instead of boast, to code instead of argue. Ryan still saw me as the quiet little brother, someone who'd never measure up, and I was okay with that, most of the time. But every time he mocked me, I remembered Dad's words. Logan, you're the calm in the storm. Those words gave me strength. I didn't need to be loud, but I wasn't weak either. Night fell, Seattle draped in neon lights and thin fog. I sat in my small office, the blue glow of my computer screen lighting my face. The steady tapping of my keyboard, blended with the patter of rain outside, creating a familiar melody. Across from me, Lucas Bennett, my partner and best friend, sipped an energy drink, eyes glued to his screen. We were racing against time to finish the biggest update for Nexa, the AI system we'd built from the ground up. My screen glowed, lines of code scrolling like an untold story. Just a few more bugs, and Nexa would be ready for major clients. From hospitals needing faster diagnoses to banks wanting secure transactions. I typed, fingers flying, mind lost in the digital world. A bug popped up. I frowned, leaned back, and scanned the lines. "You okay, Logan?" Lucas asked, his tone teasing. "You look like you're cracking the universe's code." I laughed, shaking my head. "Almost done. Just a bit more." Lucas nodded, returning to his screen, leaving me to it. I loved moments like this, when it was just me, the code, and the goal ahead. No spotlight, no mocking laughter. Here, I was myself. But even in this quiet space, Ryan's words from Emerald Bistro echoed in my head. "Still messing with computers, huh? When are you getting a real job, little bro?" My heart stung, like a small cut from breakfast that hadn't healed. I took a deep breath, pushed the feeling aside, and focused on the screen. Ryan didn't know, and probably never would, that my messing around was changing the world. I reflected on why I chose anonymity. It wasn't fear or lack of confidence. Attention just never felt right. As a kid, I tried talking about the games I programmed, the robots I wanted to build, but Ryan always overshadowed me, with a louder voice, a brighter smile. "Dumb stuff," he called it, and I learned to stay silent. Not because I lost, but because I realized the spotlight wasn't my place. I liked building in the dark, where my work could speak for me. Lucas leaned back, stretching. "Logan, aren't you tired? We've been here all day." I smiled, kept typing. "Almost there. If we finish tonight, Nexa launches on time." He shrugged, tossing me a grin. "You're unstoppable, Logan. One more push, yeah?" I nodded, fingers stiff from hours of typing. One final line of code. I hit enter, and the system started compiling. The screen lit up. No errors. "Done," I said, voice relieved. Lucas raised a fist. I bumped it. A quiet victory settling in. We did it. This update would bring Nexa to millions of new users, from healthcare to smart traffic systems. But outside this room, no one knew I was behind it. On Skypulse's website, only Lucas's name appeared. He was the face. I was the brain. That's how we always worked. Lucas loved meeting clients, talking to the press. I loved sitting here with code and silence. Ryan, if he knew, would probably laugh. His real job was big contracts, flashy handshakes. For me, it was lines of code running smoothly. I looked out the window, where Seattle's lights flickered in the rain. This city, a tech hub where giants like Amazon and Microsoft reigned, was full of pressure. Friends sometimes teased me, saying I was too shy to succeed in this industry. "Logan, you gotta brag a little. Who even knows what you do?" They didn't get it. I didn't need anyone to know. My work, Nexa, spoke enough. It helped doctors save lives, drivers avoid accidents. That was my reward. But Ryan's words still haunted me, no matter how I tried to shake them. "When are you getting a real job?" I wondered if he truly believed I was doing nothing, or did he just need someone to mock to feel bigger? I didn't hate Ryan. He was who he was, always larger than life, always shining. But his words reminded me of the gap between us. I remembered Dad's words, from a long ago night, when I was upset because Ryan stole the spotlight. "Logan, you're the calm in the storm." Those words became my compass, reminding me that silence wasn't weakness. Lucas stood, patting my shoulder. "Let's go, coding hero. You need rest." I smiled, shut off my screen, but Nexa's glow lingered in my mind. As I left the office, Seattle's cold air hit me, rain wetting my hair. I looked up at the sky, where city lights blended with the fog. Ryan might think I was useless, but I knew my worth. One day, he'd see, not through my words, but through what I'd built. I walked to my apartment, the rain soothing my mind. I sat in my small Belltown place, looking out the window, my heart heavy thinking about Ryan. His mockery at Emerald Bistro still echoed. "Still messing with computers, huh? When are you getting a real job?" But now, I knew he was facing his own storm. Last week, Mom called, her voice worried. Ryan lost his job. Logan. His ad agency cut staff. I don't know how he'll manage. I stayed silent, gripping the phone, torn between old hurts and a strange pity. Ryan was always the bright star, with a confident smile and grand stories of million-dollar deals. But Mom said when he got the layoff news, he cried in his room, the first time she'd seen him so vulnerable. I pictured Ryan sitting alone, eyes empty, his pride crushed. He didn't call me, maybe out of shame, or because he still saw me as the useless little brother. But I couldn't just stand by. Despite the sting of his words, he was still my brother, the one who shared the last cookie when we were kids. I picked up the phone, called Lucas Bennett. Lucas, is our marketing team still hiring? I asked, my voice calm, but my heart conflicted. Lucas was surprised. You caring about HR? What's up? I took a breath, briefly explained Ryan, emphasizing his marketing skills, his experience leading big campaigns. I think he'd be a good fit, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Lucas agreed to talk to HR, and just days later, Ryan was invited to interview for a marketing manager role. I didn't tell him I was involved. I didn't want him to know I was behind it. If Ryan found out, his pride might make him refuse help from the computer-tinkering little brother. Ryan got the job. I heard from Mom, her voice relieved. Ryan's so happy, Logan. He says Skypulse is an amazing company. The office is like a dream. I smiled over the phone, but inside, I felt a storm. I wanted him to succeed, but every time I thought of his smug smirk at breakfast, the gap between us felt unbridgeable. I wondered if I did this to help him, or to prove something, though I hated admitting that thought. The day Ryan started, I watched from a distance in Skypulse's office, seeing him walk in through the glass doors. The office gleamed with natural light, huge windows overlooking the shimmering Lake Union, under rare Seattle sun. The fancy coffee bar, with its espresso machine and whiteboards full of ideas, left Ryan wide-eyed. He wore a sharp navy suit, hair neatly combed, his confident smile back like it never left. I saw him shake hands with a colleague, his voice booming. I've led million-dollar campaigns. This is my wheelhouse. I shook my head, smiling bitterly. Ryan was still Ryan, always knowing how to stand out. I slipped into the server room, avoiding him. Not out of fear, but because I wasn't ready for him to know the truth. Ryan thought Lucas Bennett was the brains behind Skypulse, and I let him believe it. Lucas, with his charming smile and easy charisma, was perfect as the company's face. Me, I liked it here. Among humming computers and cooling fans, where I could keep building Nexa unnoticed. But seeing Ryan boast in the meeting room, I couldn't help thinking of all the times he called me useless. My patience was tested, but I told myself he needs this chance, and I wanted him to succeed, whether he knew I was behind it or not. Ryan settled in fast. I heard colleagues say he brought donuts to the coffee bar, told jokes that made everyone laugh, and confidently pitched ideas in his first meeting. He's a marketing star, one employee told me. Unaware of who I was, I nodded, feeling mixed emotions. I was proud of Ryan, but every story about him reminded me of the distance between us. He still thought I was the pointless tinkerer, while I'd created the place where he was shining. The rain outside kept falling, like a reminder that Seattle always hid secrets under its fog. I thought of my parents. Mom would smile seeing Ryan back on track. Dad would nod in approval. But I also thought of Dad's words. Logan, you're the calm in the storm. I didn't need Ryan to know the truth. Not yet. I just wanted him to find himself again, even if it meant I stayed in the shadows. When I left the office, I stepped onto the wet street, Lake Union's lights flickering in the distance. Ryan might be the star, but I knew my worth. In a bright meeting room, surrounded by stacks of documents, sunlight from large windows lit up his face. A cold coffee sat on the table, next to a new marketing contract he'd been tasked with reviewing. Ryan skimmed the terms, his familiar confident smile appearing. He was right where he belonged, among big ideas and chances to shine. But then his eyes stopped at the bottom line. Logan Carter. He frowned, muttering, probably just a coincidence. A half smile, like the mocking glance he gave me at Emerald Bistro, flickered and faded. But deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. Logan Carter, was downstairs in a corner of Skypulse's office, checking Nexa's data on a tablet. Laughter echoed from the coffee bar, where Ryan was telling a funny story to colleagues. I smiled bitterly, recalling how fast he'd settled in here, becoming the marketing star everyone called him. I'd helped him get this chance, though his words still stung. When are you getting a real job, little bro? But now I sensed a shift, like my secret was teetering, ready to spill any moment. It started with whispers in the office. I overheard colleagues in the break room. Know anything about LC? Signs all the big contracts, but no one's ever met them. Another laughed. Some say LC's the ghost of Skypulse. Lucas just shrugs when asked. I stood behind a bookshelf, gripping my tablet, heart racing. LC, Logan Carter, was me. Lucas and I had agreed to keep my role quiet from the start, so I could focus on code while he was the face. But rumors, like Seattle rain, always found a way to seep through. Ryan heard those whispers. I'm sure of it. I pictured him in the coffee bar, holding an espresso, ears perking up as colleagues mentioned LC. Who's LC? He asked, voice curious, but tinged with suspicion. A colleague shrugged. No one knows. Maybe a secret investor. Ryan laughed, but I knew his eyes sharpened, like when he tried solving puzzles as a kid. He wasn't one to let things go, and my signature on that contract had sparked his curiosity. I tried to stay discreet. I avoided hallways when Ryan was around, working in the tech room with its humming computers. But one afternoon, I got an email from HR, asking me to confirm an internal document. I opened it, saw my signature on an old report. Logan Carter, unmistakable. I sent it back, but unease settled in. Ryan, as marketing manager, had access to these files. I imagined him in the meeting room, scrolling through emails, seeing my name again. No way, he might mutter, his smile turning to a frown. He started asking around, voice casual but probing. Hey, this LC, is it tied to anyone in the company? A colleague told me, curious. Ryan keeps asking about LC, like he thinks it's someone he knows. Think he's onto something? I forced a smile, shook my head. But inside, I knew Ryan was following the trail. He wasn't dumb. He was great at connecting dots, like how he won every word game as a kid. I pictured him sitting alone, staring at my signature, feeling a mix of doubt, worry, and maybe envy. If I, his computer tinkering little brother, was behind Skypulse, it would shake him. Ryan was always the star, but this stage was mine. I returned to my screen, checking Nexa, trying to push away the unease. I remembered late nights here, when it was just me and the code, when Ryan's words couldn't touch me. But now, he was too close. Close enough that I felt the truth trembling. I didn't want him to know, not yet. I'd helped him get this job, and I wanted him to succeed on his own terms. But if he kept digging, my secret wouldn't stay hidden forever. The laptop screen's glow lit up Ryan Carter's face in a small meeting room. He sat alone, marketing documents piled high, but his eyes were locked on an open file, the payroll for this month. At the bottom, the name Logan Carter stood out, not on a regular contract, but as the approving signature of a co-founder. Ryan blinked, muttering, "No way." His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled, searching for more proof, but every line only confirmed what he didn't want to believe. His little brother, the one he always called useless, was the mind behind this company. Logan Carter, was in Skypulse's tech floor, sitting before a row of large screens, checking Nexa's performance after the latest update. The hum of computer fans, mixed with my typing, a calm amid the storm I knew was coming. I didn't know Ryan had seen my signature, but the unease from recent days, when he started asking about LC, Skypulse's ghost, weighed heavy. I tried focusing on the data, but his words from Emerald Bistro echoed. Still messing with computers, huh? When are you getting a real job? The old sting hadn't faded, but I told myself I didn't need his approval. My work, Nexa, spoke for itself. Ryan didn't stop at the payroll. He opened the internal system, scrolling through old emails, founding documents, and patents. Everything I'd signed as co-founder. My name, Logan Carter, was everywhere. Like puzzle pieces he didn't want to fit together. An email from Lucas Bennett to an investor, with my signature in the CC. A patent for Nexa, listing me alongside Lucas. Ryan must have whispered, "That's my little brother?" His voice shaky, mixed with shock and a feeling he didn't want to admit. Envy. I left the tech room, stepping into the hallway, soft light from overhead lamps hitting the polished wood floor. Through the glass, I saw Ryan still in the meeting room, head bowed over his laptop, shoulders trembling. I stopped, heart racing. He knew. I could feel it, but I didn't go in, didn't confront him. I turned back to my workspace, heart heavy. I didn't want him to find out like this, not through a cold signature on a screen, but in a moment I chose to reveal. But Ryan, with his relentless curiosity, had found the truth himself. In Ryan's mind, a storm was brewing. I imagined him recalling every time he mocked me, at family breakfast, in front of relatives, at parties where he was the center. "Logan's just tinkering with computers," he'd say, laughing like it was a harmless joke. Now, alone, those words must have come back, sharp as knives. Pictured him staring at my signature, shame creeping in. He'd called me useless, but I was the one behind the company he worked for, the one paying his salary. He probably thought of mom and dad, who always defended me. He was wrong, and that truth crushed his pride. But it wasn't just shame. I knew Ryan well enough to guess he was envious. He was always the star, with a dazzling smile, and public victories. I, the quiet one in the corner, had built the stage he was shining on. I imagined him gripping the table, wondering why didn't Logan say anything? Why'd he hide it? He didn't understand that I didn't need the spotlight, that silence was my strength. But for Ryan, this truth was a blow to the image he'd built for years. I returned to my screen, typing to finish a small patch for Nexa. The sound of my keys was the only thing keeping me calm. I thought about the late nights here. When Lucas and I started SkyPulse from a simple idea, I thought about Nexa's impact. Patients saved by faster diagnoses, drivers safe with smart systems. That's why I worked, not to prove anything to Ryan or anyone else. I remembered Dad's words. Logan, you're the calm in the storm. Those words, as always, gave me strength. I wasn't mad at Ryan, though his words still stung. I just wanted him to find himself, like I'd helped him get this job. But now that he knew the truth, I sensed a change coming. Not just in him, but in our relationship. Tonight is the gala, a long-awaited night, where we announce Nexa's biggest update, the AI system Lucas Bennett and I have quietly built for 3 years. But what no one expected, not even me a few weeks ago, is that I'll step onto the stage, publicly revealing my role as co-founder before hundreds of people. My entire career until now, I've stayed in the shadows, behind the scenes. I didn't need fame or attention. My work success was enough. But tonight, the spotlight, the thing I've always avoided, is something I can't escape. I stood in a corner of the room, gripping a glass of water, my mind a mess. The stage lights, which I'd always steered clear of, were waiting for me. Lucas walked over, patting my shoulder, his usual easy smile in place. Logan, you ready? This is your night. I shook my head, forcing a smile. You know I hate the spotlight, Lucas. He laughed. You deserve the credit. Next is your heart and soul. Come on, don't let me go up alone. I took a deep breath, nodded though my stomach churned with nerves. I wasn't scared to talk about Nexa. I was scared of the eyes on me, the judgment, like when Ryan mocked me at Emerald Bistro. When are you getting a real job, little bro? Ryan knew the truth. I hadn't seen him since he found my signature on the payroll, but I felt the shift. He stopped asking about LC in the coffee bar, stopped telling loud jokes like before. I pictured him alone in the meeting room, shocked and ashamed, realizing I was SkyPulse's co-founder. I wasn't angry, though his words still hurt, but I wondered how he'd react seeing me on stage tonight. The stage glowed. Lucas stepped up first, his voice booming through the mic, captivating as always. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is a milestone for SkyPulse. Nexa isn't just a product. It's a dream to change the world. The crowd clapped, camera flashes from reporters sparking. Lucas shared Nexa's journey, from a small room idea to a system helping millions, hospitals, banks, traffic. I stood backstage, heart pounding, hands trembling slightly. Lucas glanced at me, nodded. And now I'd like to introduce the person who made this dream real, my co-founder. The crowd went quiet, then murmurs rose. I stepped out, the stage lights blinding, making me blink. Applause erupted, but I only heard my heartbeat. I looked out at the audience, seeing hundreds of faces, investors in sharp suits, SkyPulse staff in party attire, reporters with cameras. And then in the corner, I saw Ryan. He stood there, holding a wine glass, eyes wide, face pale, like he'd been struck by lightning. I swallowed hard, focusing on my speech. Hello everyone, I said, voice shaky, but steadying. I'm Logan Carter, and I'm not great with crowds. The audience chuckled, easing my nerve. Nexa started with a simple idea, using tech to make life better. I've worked in the shadows, coding to help patients get saved faster, drivers stay safer. I didn't need anyone to know my name, but tonight, I want to thank the SkyPulse team, Lucas Bennett, and my family, for always supporting me. I glanced at Ryan. When I mentioned family, he stood frozen, eyes red, like he was wrestling with emotions. I remembered all the times he called me useless, in front of relatives, in front of mom and dad, William and Emily Carter. Now he was probably recalling those words, each one cutting like a blade. I didn't want him to feel ashamed, but the truth had spoken for itself. I wrapped up my speech quickly. Nexa is our dream, and I'm proud to be part of it. Thank you all. The crowd clapped loudly, cheers filling the room. Lucas stepped up, hugged me, whispering, "You nailed it, Logan." I left the stage, legs shaky, but my heart lighter. I'd done it, not to brag but to give Nexa its due. As I stepped down, I saw Ryan still in the corner, his eyes now holding not just shock, but a hint of pride. I wanted to approach him, to say something, but the crowd swarmed, colleagues patting my back, reporters shoving mics, investors shaking hands. "Logan, you're a genius," an employee shouted. I smiled, nodded, but my eyes kept searching for Ryan. He turned away, disappearing into the crowd, like he couldn't handle the moment. I pictured Ryan's mind then, a storm of shame, pride, and regret. He'd looked down on me for years, thinking I was just a pointless tinkerer, but now I stood on stage, celebrated for what I'd built. He probably thought of Mom, who always held my hand to comfort me, or Dad, who called me the calm in the storm. He might have wondered, how did I get this so wrong? I didn't want him to hurt, but I couldn't hide the truth forever. The gala went on, jazz music filling the air, guests chatting lively. I stood alone by a window, looking out at Seattle's night. The city sparkled under light rain, its lights like dreams yet to form. I thought about my journey, late nights coding, times I stayed silent against Ryan's mockery. I didn't need the spotlight, but tonight, I'd faced my fear to speak the truth. Not to get back at Ryan, but to let Nexa and myself be seen. Lucas came over, handing me a water. "How's it feel, Star?" he teased. I laughed, shook my head. "I just want my screen back." He chuckled, patted my shoulder. I looked out at the crowd, searching for Ryan, but he was gone. I knew he needed time, and I was willing to wait. I'd given him a chance at Skypulse, and now, I hoped he'd find a way to bridge the gap between us. I stood by my office window, looking down at Seattle's bustling streets below, where colorful umbrellas moved like a living painting. The gala was weeks ago. The moment I stepped on stage, revealing my role as co-founder, still echoed in my mind. I saw Ryan Carter's eyes again, my brother, standing in the corner of the room, shocked, ashamed, then tinged with pride. He hadn't spoken to me since, not a text, not a glance, but I sensed a change, like a crack in the wall of arrogance he'd built for years. Ryan wasn't the same person I saw at Emerald Bistro, with his half smirk and taunt. "When are you getting a real job, little bro?" He was still at Skypulse, still leading marketing campaigns with his natural confidence, but something was different. I overheard colleagues in the coffee bar. "Ryan's acting weird, you know." Yesterday, he praised the company's charity project, said it was something to be proud of. I paused when I heard that, gripping my coffee cup. That charity project, teaching coding to underprivileged kids in Detroit, was my passion, a part of Skypulse, quietly pushed for. Ryan never cared about stuff like that, yet now he was talking about it, with no trace of bragging. I watched Ryan from afar, through fleeting moments in the office. One day, I saw him sitting with a new employee, patiently explaining how to pitch marketing ideas. He didn't interrupt, didn't launch into stories of his own wins like before. Another time, I heard him tell a colleague, "This charity project is really cool. We should partner with more schools." I stood behind a bookshelf, heart beating faster. Ryan didn't see me, didn't know I heard, but those words felt like a door cracking open, leading to a brother I didn't know. I decided to do something small. During lunch, I left a notebook on Ryan's desk, with a handwritten note inside. "You're great at marketing, Ryan. I'm proud to see you at Skypulse, Logan." I didn't sign it dramatically, didn't wait for a thank you. I just wanted him to know I held no grudge, that I always wanted him to succeed, even if his words still stung. I returned to the tech room, kept checking Nexa's code, but my heart felt lighter, like I'd let go of an invisible weight. Ryan started changing, in small but clear ways. I heard him pitch a new education partner for the charity project to the CSR team, his voice excited but not showy. "If we get more laptops to Detroit, those kids will have bigger opportunities," he said in a meeting. I stood outside the glass door, watching him present with a sincerity I rarely saw. Colleagues nodded. Lucas patted his shoulder. "Great idea, Ryan." I smiled, didn't step in. Ryan didn't need to know. I heard he was doing the right thing, and that was enough to give me hope. I thought about what led to this change. The gala was a shock for Ryan. When I stood on stage talking about Nexa and thanking family, he probably saw every time he called me useless in front of William and Emily Carter. He probably remembered Mom's eyes, always holding my hand to comfort me, or Dad's words, "Logan, you're the calm in the storm." The truth that I, his quiet little brother, built Skypulse must have shamed him. But more than that, I think he started feeling proud. Not the boastful pride he used to show, but something deeper, harder to voice. We hadn't talked directly. I wanted to give Ryan time, like I was always patient with code. Each bug needed fixing slowly, not forced. I saw him in the coffee bar, sharing pastries with colleagues, his voice softer than before. Once I heard him say, "Sky Pulse is really special. The people behind it, they know what they're doing." He didn't look at me, but I felt he meant me. I turned away, heart warm, though a gap still lingered between us. I kept working, as I always did. One afternoon, I sat in the tech room, checking Nexa's data, the screen's glow on my face. I thought about Ryan, his journey from mocking me to starting to value what I'd built. I thought about the charity project, the Detroit kids getting laptops, thanks to my idea and Ryan's support. I didn't need him to apologize. His actions spoke louder. As I left the office, I walked through the hallway, the meeting room's light now soft. Ryan wasn't there with his cold coffee, but I knew he'd read my note in the notebook. I pictured him opening it, seeing my handwriting, and smiling faintly, a smile no longer arrogant, but genuine. I stepped outside, stood under the awning, hearing cars mix with Seattle's rain. This city, with its shimmering streets, was witnessing a change, not just in Ryan, but in our bond. I sat at Emerald Bistro, where the smell of roasted coffee and grilled pancakes filled the air, bringing back familiar family breakfasts. Soft golden light streamed through the windows, warming the table where the Carter family gathered. No tension like last time, when Ryan mocked me. "When are you getting a real job, little bro?" Today things were different. Ryan sat across from me, his smile no longer arrogant, but genuine, like rare Seattle sunshine. The table buzzed with laughter and stories. Mom talked about her new flower garden. Dad grumbled about his old computer crashing. And Ryan shared about his new marketing campaign at SkyPulse Technologies. I sipped my coffee, listening, my heart light. Then, mid-conversation, Ryan looked at me, his eyes bright. Nothing like the smug glance of before. "You know," he said, voice clear, "Logan's the smartest person I know. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here, working at SkyPulse." The table went quiet, just for a second. Then Mom smiled, her eyes misty. "Ryan, you're right," she said, voice emotional. Dad nodded, his gaze proud. I felt shy, looking down at my coffee, but warmth spread through me. Ryan's praise wasn't long or flashy, but it was sincere, like a bridge, mending the gap between us. I remembered the gala at Seattle Convention Center when he stood in the corner, shocked and ashamed learning I was co-founder. I remembered the weeks after as he slowly changed, praising the charity project, helping colleagues, leaving his ego behind. "Thanks, Ryan," I said, voice soft but loud enough for him to hear. He nodded, smiled, and for the first time in years, I saw my brother, not the star Ryan, but the real Ryan, the one who shared the last cookie when we were kids. The meal went on, laughter ringing, pancakes passed around. I looked at Mom, who always held my hand to comfort me, and Dad, who called me the calm in the storm. I knew they were proud, not just of SkyPulse, but of how Ryan and I found each other again. After the meal, I reflected as I returned to my Belltown apartment. The gala was a turning point, but Ryan's change was what mattered most. I didn't need an apology. His actions, from joining the Detroit charity project to his praise today, said it all. I was content with my silence, content that the truth spoke without me shouting. SkyPulse kept growing. Nexa kept changing lives, from hospitals to streets, and I kept working in the shadows, where I belonged. One afternoon, I visited my parents' place in suburban Bellevue, bringing my laptop to fix Dad's computer. Ryan was there, lounging on the sofa, watching basketball on TV. "Logan, you done yet?" "Dad keeps whining about his slow machine," he called, teasing. I laughed, shook my head. "Almost, be patient." Ryan got up, came over, looked at my screen. "You're a computer wizard," he said, then surprised me by helping plug in a network cable. We worked together, joking like when we were kids, fixing bikes in the garage. When the computer ran smoothly, Ryan raised a fist. I bumped it, both of us nodding in understanding. That moment, simple but enough, said we'd moved past it. I thought about SkyPulse's charity project. The Detroit kids got their laptops, started learning to code, thanks to my idea, and Ryan's push. I smiled reading the report, knowing my work mattered, even if no one needed my name. Ryan was now part of it, and I was proud of him. As I left my parents' house, I stood on the porch, hearing birds chirp in the quiet garden. Seattle, with its dreams and secrets, had seen my and Ryan's journey. I didn't need the spotlight, just family and meaningful work. And now, with Ryan's nod, I knew we had a new beginning. The story of Logan Carter and Ryan Carter and my brother told everyone I was a failure, until he saw my signature on his paycheck, reflects many facets of life in the US today, especially the competitive tech culture in Seattle, societal pressure for success, and the value of family. Logan, a talented but reserved coder, represents those who work quietly in tech, where the spotlight often goes to people like Ryan, confident, outgoing, and always boasting wins. Ryan's mockery at Emerald Bistro, calling Logan useless for tinkering with computers, mirrors a societal bias that success must be publicly displayed, a common pressure in America, where individualist culture celebrates those who stand out. But Logan's journey, from quietly building Skypulse Technologies, helping Ryan get a job, to revealing himself at the Seattle Convention Center Gala, shows the value of patience and true talent. Ryan, after the shock and shame of seeing Logan's signature, slowly changed, from arrogance to sincerity, praising Logan at the final breakfast. This reflects the ability to mend family bonds, a core American value, where family is an anchor in a busy life. Subscribe to follow Logan and Ryan's journey, exploring more stories of patience and family in Seattle. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video with even more meaningful moments.